Your two movies are, for me, expulsions. They're not explosions, they're literally expulsions of something that seems to me is very personal to you. So do they feel like that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm super happy to be here, and thank you, Guillermo. I'm really happy to have this conversation.
Thank you.
And yes, the two movies are very personal to me, and I think that's where I found my place as a filmmaker, like mixing genre film, which allows me to go out of reality and create some kind of excess, some kind of craziness, while grounding it in the themes that are really meaning something to me and that I need to express. And both of the films are very different, even if they're very linked in some way. But I think the common ground is, as you say, like the need to let something out and have something explode that in my real life I have to control. Like, you know, I have to behave, I have to, you know, go into the system that expects something, you know, from me in general. And for me, the films are really a space of freedom and also a space of I don't know the name, revendication. Like you can say something and you can let something explode that I wish could explode in real life. For me, from a very early stage in the film, there are symbols, things that allow me to say, okay, you're gonna enter a space that is not reality, but that are gonna allow you to follow the rules of the films, and that gonna make you feel things that in the end are to me the most sincere that I have inside me, and that I can express because I don't need to follow the rules of reality.
It is to me, and it's not a parable, it's almost a fairy tale. It really feels to me almost like the Queen and the Mirror in Snow White. It feels like those elements. That's why you never see who's behind it. If it was a Hollywood movie, God forbid, they would say, well, we have to find out who's behind that. We have to find out whatever the fuck they would say. But what I'm saying is it has elements of fairy tale that make it, and it's not just about one thing. Thank God it's messy. You know, it's not just a parable about this. It's like a fairy tale that goes into the dark.
Yes, to me, I think like the fairy tales have this specificity that they exist from the beginning of humanity, and I think they relate very much to what makes us human, as expressing our fears, expressing our fantasies, expressing our hopes, expressing our desire in a way that has been true for, you know, always in every different country, the same. And that's why I think fairy tales are very much related to sci-fi, because I think that in sci-fi it's exactly the same. It's like exploring who we are as human beings and what are our fears, what are our hopes, what we want to, you know, get a escape from reality and all this.
You use motifs like the donkey skin or Cinderella. The clock you have to return before this time, you have to shed the skin, this and that, but in a really beautifully savage way, because I think when you think about a tale like this tackled by a man, it's not saying good or worse, but you can clearly see the point of view. Death becomes her, where the characters are semi-ridiculous, where here they are poignant and moving and tragic. It's so interesting for me to ask you as a filmmaker, because it's not only as a woman of society. I produced Jennifer Kent, and I see.
I love her.
I see the difference, the way they are perceived. I remember having a talk with one of the main members of her crew, and they were saying she's really difficult about this and about that. I said, if you were talking about a director, you would say he has a vision. You would be saying, oh, you know, he has very clear what he wants. And I said, so you're going to do me a favor and give her the exact same level of respect. But I'm asking because especially in France. When I've noticed a change with and in Mexico and in France and in Europe, the most interesting genre filmmakers are female filmmakers right now, and not well behaved. Not when people said, "Oh, such a delicate observation." Fuck delicate. No. So can you tell me? Do you feel this kinship with other directors in the world right now?
Yeah, I feel. I resonate so much about what you say about the way you can be perceived and the way you are behaving with your work, because I think it's so true. Like, unfortunately, I think the authority and is still very gendered. Like, naturally, when it's true, when you have a guy with his cap, like there is the figure of the director,
yes.
and people are gonna listen to him.
I have a cap.
and unfortunately, even if something changed a little bit, like it's still a whole different world when you're a woman and you have very strong ideas and very specific vision and you are very detailed about what you want. It's true, you're often going to be considered as you're a pain in the ass, and to me, it's part of the whole system still that has these representations. And we're speaking about the fairy tales. And I think those things, to me, are also infusing so much in every level, And I think that's also why now that, there are more female filmmakers that, can make their films, I think it's interesting to see what they want to express, what they need to express. I'm a huge fan of Jennifer Kent. Like, to me, her movie, like The Nightingale, was a big shock for me, especially in what it expressed in terms of, authority, power, domination.
Both racial and gender.
Exactly, yeah. Both of them. And I think both of them are pretty much linked. I think,
absolutely.
the systemic are kind of the same. And I think the fact that, these new voices arrive and are able to express themselves, to me is a big shift. I think it's still minority in, in the way it arrives. And I think there is still a lot of, back and forth about the way we receive, this vision. But I definitely feel that, if many filmmakers also invest the kind of horror or genre films, it's because there is a raw energy and a raw thing that they need to take out. The way I needed to express this was in a violent way. Was
yes.
it in a not delicate way? Was it in a not like behaved way?
Yes.
Because
thank you for that.
Yeah, that was the way I have felt my whole life regarding, those issues, still nowadays. And I still don't think that things have changed a lot, to be honest, like, for real. And to me, like, the final scene and the whole movie is yes. like about look at the violence that you've created.
Yes.
Look at the violence that exists. Look at the violence that we have to bear and go through, basically.
Yeah, it's a very, quite literally explosive. It reminded me of The Rage of Carrie, for example. And one of the things I commend you is you did not stop. For me, that. The very same things that people would caution you against are the things that you knew you needed to deliver. For me, my favorite part is the ending, because it finally concludes everything to a place. The two favorite parts, that and the mirror, it's so beautifully, and it's essentially one relates to the other.
Yes, completely. To me, I'm very touched that you like the ending.
Love
because to me the ending is like the step that we don't allow ourselves to do in real life, and that I allowed myself to do in the film, and that to me express for real what's behind our appearance.
She's finally brave.
Exactly.
She's finally comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she finally loves herself. She finally look at herself in the mirror, and it's the first time where she say, okay, yes, I'm not going to stay home. I deserve to put my earrings, do my makeup, go outside, go on stage, take my place in the world, and, and have my moment. And to me, that's also when she said, it's me, she finally saw herself for who she is and managed to love herself and have some tenderness that she was never able to have. When you speak about the scene of the makeup before, she didn't go out in the end.
That's what I found them. They were related.
Exactly.
And I think is so beautiful that's why I say truthful. Because one relates to the other is such a beautiful metaphor of the other. And it's so truthful that you do this. When people talk about chaos, or when this tone that you chose, just from a directorial point of view, is a very difficult tone to sustain. Extremely complicated. The design of the movie is minute, exquisite. I think that the design of the product is astoundingly perfect, dead on. And when you rephrase colors like the Kubrickian colors, you rephrase them in a completely different way. And I absolutely think it's one of the most potent cinematically designed films. So do you want to talk to, there's moments that are Kubrickian, also the 2001 light corridors and these things. Did you have that in mind, that it needed to be a journey we took with her past that barrier?
Yes. I mean, I don't write a lot of dialogues in my films. So it's true that all the cinematic shocks I think that I had when I grew up watching films were in movies where the grammar was not about words, but was about giving you a sensorial experience, whether it is with a location, whether it is with a framing, with a wide angle or a perspective, that with no word, with a static shot, can give you so much to feel and to receive. And when I write, that's the first thing that I start to do. I research colors, I research visuals, I research sounds, and most importantly, I research symbols that's going to express my story. Because I know that I'm not going to express myself with dialogues, but I know that I have the images that are going to express the main ideas and the main intentions. And also, I remember that the biggest shock in cinema that I had were also with things that were not totally controlled, that have a part where your imagination is also free to go, to put in it what each one of us have in mind. And I know that for me, one of the scene when I think it was the first thing that I wrote, even before I knew who my character were going to be, what my story was going to be. It was the birth sequence when Elizabeth takes the drugs.
Which happens in a white environment.
Exactly.
It's the one white environment in the film, the most violent thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is no dialogue. It's everything through, framings, silencings, what you hear, what you know, something is happening but that you don't necessarily see, because I think what is out of frame is also very powerful in a way. And I think when I had written this scene, I knew that it was the way that I could take the audience from a relatively, let's say, realistic, setting for the story to a place where, the rules were clearly not reality. But I wanted to ground it in a very visceral way so everyone could relate to that experience. And I wanted everyone to feel, I can be Elizabeth. I can feel what's going on inside me if I'm taking the substance. And also when Sue is born and everything is in POV and in a very totally immersive bubble, it's like, oh wow, what would it be to discover myself as a new human being, discovering my appearance, looking at my body, and that was the thing that I knew was the most important, because it's really a visceral experience for the audience, and it was my way of hoping they would go for the journey, which is clearly out of reality, but which is still very grounded in, I think, what we have all experienced, into the relationship with our body, our fears, our hopes, the relationship with the flesh, with how you feel, how you move, how also I do think you experience life differently depending on the body you're into, and I think we're body and soul, and for me, the thing that you are one, but they get a very different experience of the world because they don't have the same body. And I think it was very important for me that the way they were going to experience their life was going to totally change depending on the physical relationship they have to the world with the body.
It's a monologue with two people.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we kind of all have those voices inside us, those different characters we kind of talk to us and can, whisper to our ears like, oh, you're not this enough, or you're not that enough. And I think we all have many people inside us.
Yes.
And it was a way to kind of express them for real on the screen.
Which is what fairy tales allow.
Yes.
They allow you to express those truths, and not in a metaphor, but in an actually physicalization of
exactly.
them.
Yeah.
Yes. May I say thank you for being savage? Thank you. And may you never give up, never domesticate.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much, everyone.